How John Gill's kingdom taxonomy was synthesized with his Christology. Gill writes, there is a passage which is perverted by some to the sense of subordination and subjection of the Son of God to the Father. And he's referencing the passage in 1 Corinthians 15, which says, then comes the end, when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to God, even the Father, and when all things shall be subdued unto him. And it keeps going, but Gill writes, he starts this off by saying, it should be observed that all this is said of something that is future. Gill writes, there is a twofold sonship of Christ, divine and human. From the one he is denominated the Son of God, and from the other the Son of Man. Now this is coming from the Hanover Review, the journal of the London Lyceum, which I love that podcast, but this is different articles by different individuals on the theology of John Gill. You can find the physical copy, but the PDF on the London Lyceum website is only $5. And they are commenting here on what Gill is saying. Jesus as God's Son speaks to the particular way in which the divine essence subsists in the person of the Son. It is Christ's eternal generation from the Father which establishes his claim to divinity and at the same time negates any possibility of subordination. In another sense, Jesus is God's Son as the Son of Man. The reality that Jesus is God's Son means that he is the second and last Adam. Jesus is the perfect Son who, as the antitype of Adam, carries out all that it means to be a true son of God. He is the Son who fulfills the offices of the Anointed One, prophet, priest, and king. Jesus is the Son who was made like his brothers in every way in order to bring many sons with him to glory, according to Hebrews 2. So going back to that 1 Corinthians 15 passage, Gill says, from the context of that, he is spoken of throughout as man who died and rose again from the dead. Gill says, at Christ's second coming, when all the elect of God shall be gathered in, and Christ shall have completely finished his work as mediator, he will deliver up the mediatorial kingdom complete and perfect. They comment that Gill takes Christ's twofold sonship and twofold kingship and draws out a twofold authority. Gill writes, for though the human nature is united to a divine person who is omnipotent, it does not become omnipotent thereby. Though the two natures, divine and human, are closely united in Christ, yet the properties of each are distinct and peculiar, and it is easy to observe that the human nature of Christ was subject to various infirmities, though sinless ones, and stood in need of help, strength, and deliverance, for which as man he prayed, and at last he was crucified through weakness. Then Gill goes over to Matthew 28:18, that is said not of the attribute of divine power, which is not given him, but is natural to him as a divine person. Commenting on this, they say, Gill taught how Jesus is both passible and impassible, how Jesus is both omnipotent and weak, and how Jesus is both God and man. Gill's kingdom taxonomy flows appropriately out from his Christology. Jesus is king as God, and Jesus is king as man. And they say that this excerpt also displays Gill's commitment to the Reformed doctrine of the extra Calvinisticum. Jesus has all authority inherently, and as Richard Moeller explains, since the finite humanity of Christ is incapable of receiving or grasping infinite attributes such as omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience, Jesus has received all mediatorial authority derivatively. This is what Gill's taxonomy clarifies, that Christ reigns by right and Christ reigns by reward. He brings up Matthew 28:18 to demonstrate that it was as the triumphant resurrected Son of Man that Christ received all authority as a reward for his obedience, but not as the eternal Son of God, since according to his divinity, the Son already possessed all authority.